Here's a look at the times when the judges absolutely despised the food, and this contestant right here decided to give their taste buds a nightmare. And what better than to get things started with Howard's black cod dish? So Howard may have started out strong in season 4, but somewhere along the way, his dishes got messy.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to discover what lies under that mystery box.
Yeah, this mystery box challenge left much to be desired. So the box revealed cod and other Asian-inspired ingredients, and right off the bat, Howard seared a little lost.
Howard, what
What's
we
up,
got?
Joe? How you doing? Soy sauce rice, and I'm doing soy sauce.
Oh wait, there's more to it.
And I'm gonna bread the black cod and also sear it.
And although he was listing out his dishes with so much confidence and flair, Joe had something entirely different to say, and boy did it catch everyone by surprise.
So your station looks like a disaster.
Yep, he actually said that. Imagine being on the receiving end of that. If that's not demoralizing, I don't know what is. But Howard was determined.
No, definitely not. I've been there too often, so it's time to get to the top.
Okay, thanks, Howard.
Well, at least he knew he had been at the bottom too many times, but it seems like he still had not learned his lesson because things were about to get much worse for him.
Ladies and gentlemen, and Chef Ramsay, just over 10 minutes to complete your mystery box dish.
After the time was up, the judges went around looking at the contestants' dishes to see which one stood out.
One dish stood out as appalling.
And of course, there was that one dish which caught their eye for all the wrong reasons. There's always one, but those are words you never want to hear from a MasterChef judge.
Home-cooked plated raw fish.
Raw fish? That is such a rookie mistake at this point, it is not even funny. All the contestants looked so puzzled because how do you not cook the fish when you have 60 minutes to, well, cook? Howard especially wondered who'd ever have the audacity to do something like that.
It's not raw fish. I was like, does someone do like sashimi or something?
But the culprit may have been a little closer to home than he'd bargained for. Because before he could even make sense of what happened, Howard's worst nightmare came true.
Howard, bring that dish up.
When Howard was called to the front, he confidently brought up his dish, black cod with shiitake mushrooms. Now, this could have been a good dish if he had paid just a little bit more attention. But sadly, we don't live in that world.
Without tasting it, you know immediately it's raw.
Well, I can tell, that reaction from the judges came as a shock to him. I mean, the dude was super confident in his dish back when he had a chat with Joe. And now this?
This kind of is what pisses us off.
Yikes, I'd never want to be in his place. I mean, that's just embarrassing. But wait, the worst was yet to come.
These kind of dishes are what send you home.
Yeah, what did I tell you? Humiliation at its best. I mean, there's no way it could get any worse than that. It's almost like Joe keeps looking for that one moment where he can trash a dish, and well, Howard gave him the perfect opportunity to do just that. But here comes a dish that holds the lowest honor in the history of the show. The worst dish ever served. Quite the accolade, right? And the mastermind behind this little dish? Big Willie. So, it was one of those particularly difficult challenges from season 5 when our boy here left his A game at home. So, Willie had to make a Carmelini, and if you are clueless about what that's supposed to be, don't worry, so was Willie.
Caramelli pasta is. We don't have fancy Italian restaurants, at least not where I've been.
So, the challenge wasn't off to a great start. Imagine having to cook something that you haven't even heard of before, but he couldn't just stand there doing nothing. And so, Big Willie came up with an idea. He ended up taking a totally different route from the other contestants. While everyone else seemed to have a game plan, he was just winging it, hoping for the best. And when he finally got to chat with Graham, things took an interesting turn. Graham's reaction was priceless. You just have to see it for yourself.
I'm doing a dessert Carmelini.
No.
Yes.
Yep, he said he was gonna make a dessert Carmelini. Something tells me he's not really sure what he's doing. The way he said it with such hesitation, like he was trying to convince himself more than anyone else, made it pretty clear. Honestly, watching him fumble with the ingredients and second guess every step, you can't help but feel a bit anxious for him. It's like he's trying to piece together a puzzle without knowing what the final picture should look like. Let's just hope he figures it out before time runs out. But something tells me that's not gonna happen. Because look at what we have here.
Apple filling.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna make a creme anglaise.
I mean, those ingredients don't sound like things that typically go in a stuffed pasta dish, but maybe he was just being innovative. Watching him work, you could see he was either taking a huge risk or had a unique vision in mind. While it might pay off, who knows? It could also end in disaster. So, which way do you think this dish would steer?
Like in a dessert fashion? That's just crazy town.
Technically, Graham was right. But Big Willie believed it was either go big or go home, and in this case, he might actually be the one who's going home.
You don't want to go home, though,
I don't
right?
want to go home.
You know that we're judging you on the caramelli based on, like, what we showed you.
Graham once again explained the rules to Big Willie, detailing how the contestants would be judged based on the dish the judges displayed. He emphasized the importance of following the guidelines and replicating the dish as closely as possible. However, it seemed like the message was lost on Willie. Despite Graham's clear instructions, Willie looked as though he was still trying to figure things out, his expression a mix of confusion and determination.
I have to shine.
Well, at least you can live with that then.
Clearly, Graham wasn't impressed with his idea, but there was only so much advice he could offer. And when it was finally time for Big Willie to present his dish to the judges, this is what happened.
It's a squash apple caramellini with a cremon glazed sauce.
Yeah, that clearly doesn't sound like something you want in stuffed pasta. In fact, Chef Ramsay couldn't help but point out the obvious to Big Willie.
That he loves eating daily, something I want to see in one of my restaurants.
Well, it looks like Willie completely missed the memo, alongside the key points Joe had emphasized about the challenge earlier. The guy was in his own world, perhaps confident in his own approach, or just plain oblivious to the instructions. This time around, it looked like it was going to cost him big time. And then Chef Ramsay finally asked him the one question that had been on everyone's minds from the moment he said dessert.
It just came to me.
That has to be one of the most ridiculous explanations ever. I mean, this dude had no understanding of what the judges were saying, and to make things worse, he was about to lose his chance to show up tomorrow, let alone win the competition.
Almost like an abuse. Francis here with the tricks, Daniel's confused, and you're just all over the shop, but I am so unimpressed.
Yikes. Now, that's a comment he was not going to forget anytime soon. Especially to hear such a thing from one of the top chefs in the world is so embarrassing.
I see this dish and I'm absolutely dreading tasting it because it sounds disgusting.
And just when you thought all the feedback was done, Chef Ramsay had some more to add.
It looks like regurgitated dog vomit. Oh. It's just unappetizing.
Ouch. That has got to be the worst thing you could hear about the food you've made as a chef. Hearing those words is like a dagger to the heart for anyone passionate about cooking. It's the kind of feedback that makes you question everything you thought you know about your skills in the kitchen.
Excuse me.
Well, I don't blame him though. I mean, is there anything more heartbreaking than that for a chef? However, the feedback didn't end there, as Chef Ramsay simply couldn't stop venting his frustration.
Obliterated with cinnamon. I love you when you cook humble, but I absolutely detest.
See, Ramsay really did have a point, because sometimes trying to stand out does not always work in one's favor, and here, it did not do any good for Willie and his skills. Instead, it actually made things much worse for him.
When you've been given the best of ingredients, I call it lazy Willie, not Big Willie.
In the end, Chef Ramsay had nothing else to say but say the thing was disgusting. No frills, no added expletives, just disgusting. And you could see Willie's heart sink.
My dish sucked.
That did not work.
It's a shame to see because he really could have done something good with the dish, but he chose a different path and it finally backfired on him. Now, this reminds me of another contestant who was extremely sassy from season 6. He stood out for being one of the quirkiest and funniest chefs that season, but the cooking was a whole other story. In episode 4, Tommy was part of the losing blue team and had to take part in a pressure test that was really going to take it to new heights. But before we get to that, the judges had some questions for Tommy.
In the hell happened there yesterday?
Communication is key.
Yeah, the judges weren't in the mood to waste time. However, instead of taking any accountability for what went wrong, Tommy completely shifted the blame to another person on the team. Yeah, dispute being a team effort, he bluntly decided to blame Katrina, and that surely wasn't a good look.
The more I tried to communicate with Katrina, I was met with total dissatisfaction.
He was clearly annoyed, rolling his eyes at anything and everything and wearing his frustration on his sleeve. His body language screamed impatience, and you could tell he was barely holding it together. In fact, the more he stayed back to witness the comments and instructions, the more it pushed him closer to the edge. Finally, the dish for their pressure test was revealed. The infamous cinnamon roll, everyone's go-to comfort dessert. The announcement was met with a mix of relief and apprehension among the contestants. While some felt confident about tackling this classic treat, others knew that its simplicity could be deceptive.
The unmistakable smell. Cinnamon roll.
Yeah, Tommy didn't seem thrilled, and his expression shifted from annoyance to skepticism. It was as if he couldn't believe they had to make something so seemingly straightforward, yet notoriously tricky. His reaction hinted at an underlying tension, and you could sense that he had his own reservations about how this challenge would unfold.
Obviously, Katrina knows more about pies, cakes, cookies, donuts, and cinnamon rolls than I do, so I've got to bring it.
He was being so rude and making unnecessary comments about Katrina, which was just really uncalled for. As the judges made their rounds, they soon figured out who among the contestants was capable of actually making the dish and who was not. And then they reached Tommy's station.
For you, the last 30 minutes?
No, I'm not done. I'm gonna whoop some serious ass.
Tommy sounded confident for a bit there, but we will just have to see how long it will take him because he seemed beyond frazzled at the workplace.
I'm from Chicago.
Right.
It was clear he was grappling with a mix of nerves and determination, trying to muster the confidence he needed to face the challenge. He then proceeded to explain his dish to Chef Ramsay, and well, you just have to see this for yourself.
Green tea and pistachio cinnamon roll.
Wow.
Those sound like high aspirations coming from someone who has never even had any experience with a cinnamon roll.
The bitch who tried to throw me under the bus. Katrina.
Oh damn, things were getting way too heated. No thanks to Tommy, of course, who just wanted to add more fuel to the fire for some reason. But Chef Ramsay had a major reality check just waiting for him.
5 minutes. He will be going home.
I know, chef.
Good luck.
And then it was time for the taste test.
A man of art, style, flair.
I mean, seriously, where was he going with this though?
What's inside the box?
Green tea fillings, cinnamon, allspice, pistachio nuts. The flavor profile.
Let's have a look inside the box.
Chef Ramsay's reaction, however, was shocking to say the least.
In the is that?
The judges were completely appalled by his dish.
There are bits in there that taste decent, but I'm shocked. I honestly don't know how you got there.
Well, hopefully this time around, he learns his lesson. Anyway, here comes a dish so appalling, you're probably going to be trying to wake up. But this is no nightmare, it's all too real. So, Lynn was a contestant in season 4, and while he may have been off to a good start, things definitely went sideways with this particular elimination challenge. Now, they had a $5 Walmart basket, and the contestants had to make do with that, with a banana being the star of their dish. As the judges started making their rounds, Chef Ramsay reached Lynn's workstation, and well, you have to see his reaction.
Right, Lynn, what are you doing?
I'm gonna do a strawberries pavlova.
Wow.
Seems like a good enough start to me.
Talk to me about the steps.
Just doing meringue as thin as I can.
No cream.
Chef Ramsay, however, did not seem convinced by the dish, so he continued his round of questioning. But that's when something crazy happened.
No cream.
No cream.
Jelly?
I was gonna try to do a milk jelly, but it's not setting the way I want it to.
No,
It's setting
unless it's
the way I
broken.
wanted it.
He was giving all the wrong answers, and the shock on Chef Ramsay's face said it all. Every response seemed to dig him deeper into a hole, and you could almost feel the collective cringe of the audience. Lynn had no confidence in his dish, and it was painfully obvious to see him stumble over Chef Ramsay questions. You couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy as he struggled to keep his composure under Chef Ramsay's intense scrutiny. The entire exchange was a masterclass in kitchen disaster, and it was hard to look away from the unfolding drama.
Why is that broken?
I don't know. I don't even like strawberry jello. I think it's kind of a cheesy ingredient.
If you don't like it, why the are you doing it?
Those were some big claims to make, especially because he didn't even like the ingredients he was actually cooking with. And of course, Ramsay had to say this.
Serve with what?
That's gonna go on top of the pavlova.
Wait, did he just change the whole thing in the span of minutes? Does he even realize there is a time limit?
For goodness, not coming together. You've got no cream to make, but you're going to substitute that with milk. Lynn, are we saying goodnight to you?
That was definitely a valid question because Lynn seemed way in over his head and nobody can deny that he was completely failing. And then it was time for the taste test. Now, wait till you see the judge's reaction.
You got a second?
Yeah, never a good sign.
That's incredible.
They continued staring at it because they just could not believe their eyes, and who could blame them?
Right. What's the grey bits?
It's a banana puree.
I know I was doing the same the first time I saw it. The next thing you know, the judges called him out on his dish, and Lynn had no explanation he could possibly give to get him out of this mess.
It looks like you slipped in cow and baked it.
Ouch. Well, I think Lynn really dug his own grave here, though.
It's like eating a wall insulator with some strawberry or banana that your granddad left under his bed before he passed.
And if those comments from Chef Ramsay weren't enough, Joe then did this.
Might be a moment.
Classic. But what this next contestant served was beyond horrifying. So Nick strolled into town with his signature woolly hat, making although the sun was blazing outside. But hey, you gotta respect the commitment to fashion, right? And you have to give it to him. The dude was trying to attempt something he'd never done before. He's preparing a dish that could feature in a fine dining restaurant. But he didn't seem to be too concerned about it.
I work as an adventure guide, so I do a lot of rock climbing and hiking work, all that kind of thing. And so a lot of my cooking is done on fires or in camp ovens, on little stoves. So this is all a bit foreign, just going from that kind of thing to the fine dining.
Yeah, well, looks like he was in for a real adventure. But what was he cooking up exactly? Well, listen to it yourself.
What are you cooking today then?
I'm cooking a chicken jolly. Parallel can draw, Did come from the supermarket, this one, I'm happy to say.
Yep, Nick had decided to present what he called chicken jolly, which is basically chicken breast infused with white wine, served with fettuccine, parmesan, avocado, and almonds. Sounds fancy, huh? But here's the kicker, he admitted the chicken came straight from the supermarket. So much for bush cooking, huh? Anyway, Nick was finally ready with his dish, and when he walked in to present it, this is how the judge reacted upon seeing him.
What's with the woolly hat, mate? It's like 30 degrees outside.
Yeah, it keeps the hair out of my eyes. I'm in the middle of a stupid bet so you can grow their hair for the longest.
So what have you got?
Yeah, I don't think that little reply of his made a good impression. Either way, once the introduction was out of the way, the judges were so curious to see him at work that they walked up to his station to get a closer look.
So do you fish? Do you
try to? I don't. Generally, I'm just the cook.
But just like these guys, they cook and they send people out to go and get stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But just when the food critics started grilling him about where he got his ingredients from, you won't believe what he said.
Eating the odd bit of roadkill.
Sorry?
Eating the odd bit of kangaroo being retrieved from the side of a road.
He cannot be serious. I mean, I've never heard anything as absurd as that before. Nick casually dropped the bomb that he'd been known to scavenge kangaroo off the side of the road. Yeah, you heard that right. I mean, like, come on. Room for roadkill at dinner, anyone? The judge's expressions said it all. But, well, they weren't exactly excited to try his dish.
I'm eternally suspicious now of anything that you cook.
You're the food critic.
Of course, can have a rock off if you like.
Do we rock off? Actually, paper, rock, scissors it. Do you want it?
Ready?
But wait, it gets better. The judges decide to play a game of rock, paper, scissors to see who had to taste Nick's creation first.
Gary!
Enjoy.
Classic, right? I mean, how many times have you seen this happen on MasterChef? Though maybe honor is overselling it a bit.
Oh, no!
Oh, that must have been on the chicken.
Record-breaking hair? What's that?
I guess Nick forgot to mention that special ingredient he added into his dish. I mean, those unruly locks of his? Despite being tucked under the hat, a strand managed to worm its way out from under there and fell straight into his dish. Classic. When Gary confronted him about the hair, the dude just laughed it off. Sadly for the judges, this particular chicken dish wasn't so jolly after all, huh? But guess what? This next contestant knew exactly what to add, what she didn't know is how much of it. You see, throughout her time on the show, Courtney, the winner of MasterChef Season 5, usually stole the show every time she showed up to cook. However, there was this one notorious episode where she would have crashed and burned, but somehow, and thankfully for her, she managed to stay afloat. But was it luck, or was it something else entirely? In a twist of fate, Iran, the winner of the previous round, bestowed upon Courtney the power to choose her dish for the dreaded pressure test.
I'm going to choose for everyone out there to cook.
I'll choose.
So, what did she go for?
And chose
donuts. But things were about to take a turn for the worse. Courtney, knowing full well the importance of yeast in the art of donut making, ended up making a rookie mistake. She first instructed everyone to grab some yeast, effectively draining the pantry of this crucial ingredient.
I'm remaking my dough because I forgot to add eggs to it. I have to start over, all over, right now.
No eggs in the dough and no yeast left. Well, hey, at least we can make hardtack or something instead.
No, I'm sorry. I only got the 2.
Do you have any extra yeast? 1 packet, 2 packets?
I don't see any.
I'm basically shouting down the line to anybody that might have yeast, and no one will give me anything.
But wait, the worst was yet to come.
No more yeast.
Okay, Francis.
What?
You have the whole kitchen in here. Do you have any extra yeast? I love you. Thank you.
Honestly, Francis, what the hell? You just messed with my plan right now.
Oh, it's Francis.
I'm so grateful.
Francis, sensing Courtney's impending doom, came to the rescue and handed her some yeast. Now, you might be thinking, problem solved, right? Wrong. The burning question remained. Could Courtney salvage this donut disaster and turn it into a culinary masterpiece? Would she be able to whip up a delectable delight despite the odds stacked against her?
So, we asked for a box.
So, here's what happened. Courtney, ever the resilient contestant, rolled up her sleeves and got to work. With a dash of creativity and a sprinkle of determination, she transformed her dire situation into an opportunity to shine. Despite the initial setback, Courtney managed to conjure up a batch of donuts.
Raspberry frosted donut and a chai glaze on the other.
But was she able to whip up the perfect batch? He spat it right out like it was the worst thing he'd ever tasted. Turns out, there was an unforgivable mistake she had committed.
They're salty. That's seriously salty.
I mean, who messes up donuts that bad? But, well, at least Chef Ramsay's reaction was priceless.
Please tell me you didn't put salt in place of sugar.
That is a mistake. I did not purposely put more salt in there.
I can tell you it tastes weird.
Yes.
It's like you've lost your heels, you've lost your mojo. You've peaked. You won the last dessert challenge. Is that you now on the descent?
No, I did hit a large bump. I picked everything up and kept going, and I didn't give up.
You're sliding down the aerial faster than you got up there.
But wait, it gets even crazier. Because when Joe and Graham stepped up, they were in for a salty shock of their own. Can you imagine how embarrassing that must have been?
It's hard for me to love these donuts.
And it's not just the judges, even the other contestants were probably snickering behind their backs. I mean, come on, mistaking salt for sugar? As much as people have bandied out that excuse as being a production team thing on Hell's Kitchen, I haven't heard the same from MasterChef, so this one's entirely on her.
Raspberry and blood orange icing.
How'd you let the salt slip?
It had to have happened when I was just rushing to get the second batch of dough.
It's hard for me to love these donuts. It's hard for me to even like them.
I'm sorry, Chef.
Now, I can never figure how exactly Courtney dodged the bullet that day. In fact, some viewers even think that the judges played favoritism because of which Courtney managed to stay on. And not just stay on, but managed to win the season as well. But, well, not all are as lucky as Courtney. You see, Mark Raffaelli was on a road to ruin of his own making when he stepped into the MasterChef kitchen during season 2. Ranked in the oh-so-glorious 17th place, Mark's time on the show was marked by a series of simple mistakes that ultimately led to his early elimination. And what's more, it wasn't even a major mistake like Courtney's. It was actually pretty petty in the grand scheme of things. So what happened is, in the bustling kitchen of MasterChef, contestants faced the daunting task of creating culinary masterpieces under intense pressure. I know that hardly narrows it down, but still. However, it was the simple errors that made him stumble along the way. As the challenges unfolded, Mark found himself in a whirlwind of elimination rounds.
French or British cuisine?
I have no idea what's in store for us.
Spoiler alert, he chose French. Despite the chaos, Mark managed to secure a safe spot after 2 grueling rounds. It was during one such challenge that Christian, wielding his power from a previous win, selected a dish for the contestants to prepare. The kitchen was a frenzy of activity as Mark hurriedly searched for the required ingredients.
Has anyone seen thyme?
I have no idea what I'm gonna cook.
Amidst the frantic pace, Graham sensed Mark's determination and held high hopes for him. However, a pivotal moment arrived when the chef questioned Mark's confidence in his dish. It was a moment of truth as Mark, perhaps feeling the weight of the competition, stumbled in his response.
French restaurants?
No.
Okay. So you're kind of flying blind.
Yes.
Okay.
With unwavering determination, Mark presented his creation to the judges. A peppercorn-crusted filet.
Creamy rosemary garlic mashed with a béarnaise sauce.
However, the excitement quickly turned to dismay when Joe discovered a grave error.
Flour?
Unbeknownst to Mark, raw flour had found its way into the mashed potatoes. Yes, raw flour.
There's raw flour in here.
What?
That is a...
It had turned a potentially exquisite dish into a culinary disaster. Seeing this, Chef Ramsay pitched in to express his disappointment.
In cooking and adding flour to a liquid
And nope, he didn't stop there.
is one of them.
I was praying that someone else's dish was worse than mine.
Raw flour in mashed potatoes is deemed a culinary sin, a mistake that should never have been made. And Mark, realizing the gravity of his error, stood in the spotlight of scrutiny.
That someone else's dish was worse than mine, but adding flour to mashed potatoes like that without cooking them down is a big no. Even if someone's dish was worse than mine, they'll have a really good chance of going home.
The tension in the kitchen was palpable as Mark awaited the judge's verdict. Despite the unfortunate mishap, there lingered a glimmer of hope that perhaps Mark's overall performance would outweigh this misstep. However, as the judges deliberated, Mark knew that his fate hung in the balance.
Lord, please, just let me.
In the end, the decision was made. Mark's journey on MasterChef abruptly came to an end.
Should have listened to my instinct and done it the right way. Nevertheless, it was an amazing experience.
The raw flour incident had sealed his fate, and he bid farewell to the competition with a heavy heart. It was a lesson learned in the unforgiving world of culinary arts. Even the simplest of mistakes could lead to a swift exit. Reflecting on his time on MasterChef, Mark admitted that the highs of potential and the lows of mistakes had sculpted him into a better chef, ready to tackle future culinary endeavors with newfound wisdom.
Should have listened to my instinct and done it the right way. Nevertheless, it was an amazing experience, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
As he bid farewell to the MasterChef kitchen, Mark carried with him the lessons learned and the determination to rise above any culinary challenge that came his way. So, here's a question for you. Now that you saw how Courtney and Mark's dish turned out, who do you think deserved a second chance? Are salty donuts better than finding raw flour in the dish? What would your judgment be had you been the judge on MasterChef? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. Meanwhile, let's move on to another epic fail, which sadly was quite painful to watch. Alright, so here's a primer on what to expect next. Each team captain kicked off the culinary chaos by picking a dish to whip up. But here's the twist. Every 15 minutes, a new chef strolled into the kitchen, totally clueless about what exactly was cooking. Now, let's talk about Jared, the mastermind behind the blue team. He strutted in with all the confidence of a seasoned chef and decided on a dish: mussels in a coconut and tomato broth.
Into the pot and I'll see the broth.
Sounds fancy, right? But here's the genius part. It's not just delicious, it's easy for everyone on the team to wrap their heads around. It was a pretty sound strategy. And as for Jared, let's just say his cooking skills were matched only by his knack for leadership. I mean, I'm sure the judges couldn't wait to see how this recipe would turn out. However, things were about to go spiraling out of control before long. And I don't think anyone, least of all Jared, expected things to go that way. John, the third cook to step up to the plate, didn't quite catch Fiona's relay message. Instead of getting mussels in a coconut and tomato broth like she said, this is how that insane mind of his interpreted what to do next.
His left hand. Is it chocolate?
It was frustrating to watch. You could clearly see that written all over their faces. And boy, did he take that message to heart. In just 15 minutes, yes, you heard that right, 15 measly minutes, John dashed to the pantry like a madman possessed. He was grabbing everything in sight, tossing in a smorgasbord of seafood to try and throw the Hail Mary of the century. But wait, there's more.
Now I'm really freaking out.
In a move that would make even the bravest of chefs break into a sweat, he snagged a block of white chocolate. Why? Because in John's world, apparently, making a veloute out of chocolate was the next big thing that even the judges hadn't put their finger on the pulse of.
What's he doing?
John.
There's a coconut mussel broth.
And not even Marco Pierre White. He sauntered over like a concerned parent about to confront their misbehaving child. And he asked a question that wouldn't be out of place in that context either.
Are you going back to your old habits?
I'm going to keep it simple, so I'm just going to have
White chocolate veloute.
White chocolate veloute and what?
But did John listen? Oh no, he barreled ahead, headfirst into danger, completely oblivious to the fact that he was about to crash and burn.
What are you doing? Told him what the dish was. He's just gone and got new.
And just when you thought it couldn't get any crazier, it did. It always seems to, doesn't it? John's cooking frenzy reached a crescendo as he poured his heart and soul into the catastrophe of the century. Meanwhile, the rest of us could only watch in awe and horror, depending on how you take it, as he single-handedly transforms a simple dish of mussels into a culinary calamity of epic proportions.
I know exactly what's going on now. This dish is just beyond complicated. It's going to definitely overwhelm whoever comes next.
Meanwhile, the clock was ticking, and Jared was supposed to lead his squad to victory with this mussel masterpiece. But guess what? When his time was up, it was like a kitchen nightmare there. There were mussels everywhere, half-cooked, half undone, and the counter was cluttered like a hoarder's paradise.
Johnny, what are you doing? Why are you doing a white chocolate velouté with a coconut broth?
And then came Amy, the fourth cook in line, hoping to salvage the situation. But hold your aprons, folks, because John, the third chef, couldn't even string two words together to explain what the heck he was trying to cook. It was like he was speaking a whole different language.
Lobster and stuff, but what's the white chocolate velouté?
I've added that broth into it, and we're going to be adding what?
With just 30 minutes left on the clock, things were looking bleak, and no one had a clue what was happening. Fast forward to the end, and it was like a disaster served with a side of humiliation.
I just wanted to hide under a rock. It's good that you followed your instincts.
Too late, John. Too late. Amy and Georgia were left scratching their heads, staring at a pot of culinary catastrophe. And guess what? Team Blue got the boot straight into the elimination round. And there was John on the other side, admitting defeat with a feeble, "I messed up." Well, no kidding, John. Maybe next time, stick to microwave meals. Anyway, if I had a chance, I'd give the same advice to this next contestant, Tracy. You see, Tracy showed really great potential in cooking and big dreams, but things took a really unfortunate turn.
Chef, and unfortunately, I never took that career path. I'm just really like everyone in America who's had a dream.
Tracy, full of determination, walked onto the set, ready to cook her heart out.
The longest walk of my life.
And well, this is what she finally came up with.
I have made for you today a wild mushroom crispy risotto cake with a truffled egg and just some nice upland cress and some chives on the side topped with Parmesan cheese. Perfect.
It sounded fancy, and Tracy was confident. What's more, she had some sort of a deep connection with food.
So tell her, what does food mean in your life?
I grew up in an Italian household. My grandmother taught me how to cook. And so growing up, loving and learning how to cook, my life, it's really what I'm meant to be doing.
But if you grew up...
Yeah, she couldn't stop thanking her Italian grandmother who taught her how to cook. And as Tracy revealed about her life, the judges were curious to know more.
You have to be strong enough at a young age to get into it and pursue it.
Determined?
Determined, and I was determined.
So you're weak, obviously.
I'm not weak at all, actually. I am very, very strong. I'm gonna cook you the best dish I can possibly cook, get an apron, and damn it, I'm gonna win this competition. This is the opportunity of a life.
But when it came to her dish, all of that confidence fell flat. The judges weren't impressed by the fact that Tracy had added something forbidden in her dish.
Time.
What is that?
This here, it's just some white truffle oil.
White truffle oil?
Yes.
One of the most pungent, ridiculous ingredients ever known to chef.
The sure sign of someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Do you know the truffle oil?
It was a big mistake indeed. They called her out for cooking like a non-professional and for missing out on the real truffles. Sadly, despite her love for cooking, things took a dark turn for her.
Oils are made by perfumists that have no white truffles in them.
But it's good.
I can't believe you've just done that. I think you've just put your apron up in flames, let me tell you that.
Well, I'm sure nobody saw that coming, least of all Tracy.
Generally, if you go to a restaurant, you see truffle oil on the menu, it's a good reason to run away.
I can smell it from here. It stinks.
But if you ask me, I think the judges went easy on her, because clearly it could have gone a lot worse than this.
The rice cake is delicious. The egg got that richness to it, but the whole thing is knocked out, sadly.
Meanwhile, Tracy was feeling the pressure mounting as the judges tasted her dish. At first, they acknowledged that the risotto cake itself was delicious, but, well, that was the only good thing about the dish.
They're really delicious, but that truffle oil, it really takes over that dish.
Tracy knew she had made a mistake, but she was determined to learn from it.
Mistake.
I know.
We'll
That
get rid
is
of
just a
crap.
mistake, big mistake.
After a few tense moments, the judges were ready with their decision. And what do you know? Graham decided to give her another chance, much to Tracy's relief.
Yes or no?
I'll give you a chance.
Thank you so much.
As Tracy walked away, she knew she had to step up her game. She couldn't afford to make the same mistake again.
Keep cooking.
Thank you so much.
With renewed determination, Tracy vowed to keep cooking and improve her skills. But next up, here comes one of the youngest contestants on the show, Max Kramer. And this dude found himself in the midst of a pressure test that would put his culinary skills to the ultimate test.
Steaks in there?
About that much.
Okay, in between the 15 crepes, what is...
So, what was the challenge? Creating a dessert dish that would impress the judges and secure a sweet spot in the competition. But guess what? Despite being just 18 years old, Max had enough arrogance to eat everyone whole. Throughout the season, his attitude led to several feuds among the contestants, adding an extra layer of tension to the already high-stakes kitchen. Had he spent more energy in perfecting his cooking skills, who knows? His dessert, called Torte du Crepe, wouldn't have ended up being a disaster. Now, given that this ambitious creation consisted of an impressive 15 layers of delicate crepes and luscious cream, Max was confident of sealing a spot in the next round. However, reality struck hard when Chef Ramsay took a bite, and believe me, his reaction was immediate and unfiltered. The disappointment was palpable as Max realized that his dessert had missed the mark by a long shot. But Chef Ramsay wasn't done. To prove his point, he even made Max taste his creation as a form of not-so-sweet punishment. The young contestant's face mirrored the shock and dismay of the judges as he sampled his own dish. Joe and Graham, who joined in the tasting, and couldn't help but laugh at the unfortunate outcome. Max's dessert, which he had been so proud of, turned out to be a complete disaster. The layers of crepes and cream, instead of harmonizing into a delicate treat, clashed in an unsettling way. The texture was off, the flavors didn't blend with each other, and the whole thing was a dessert gone wrong. All it takes is one small mistake to send you home, and this next contestant learned it the hard way. But wait till you see the next dish, which had the judges regretting hosting the show. You see, Leslie's win in Season 5, Episode 11's Mystery Box Challenge led to a series of competitive maneuvers that targeted Daniel. The gambit involved challenging everyone to cook an unfamiliar pasta type, leaving Daniel at a disadvantage by restricting him to a roller instead of a pasta machine.
I mean, are you surprised that Leslie singled you out here?
No, Chef. Because Leslie is a petty man, precisely the type of behavior I expect from him.
Believe me, their rivalry was iconic. Faced with this challenge, he made short rib caramel with tamarind curry. However, it was far from up to par. Chef Ramsay slammed the dish because it suffered from being completely imbalanced, with more pasta than filling.
I'd like to congratulate you on standing out tonight, possibly outside the door.
Moreover, the overwhelming spiciness made it inedible. And when Chef Ramsay prodded Daniel for his take, he got real defensive.
I wish I had made the caramelli smaller. I enjoy the sauce.
However, the famous chef shut Daniel down mid-sentence, putting him on blast for his complete delusion.
And
stop there. Good night.
Thank you, Chef.
Gee, I feel secondhand embarrassment for the guy. And to just rub some salt into the wound, Elliot pretty much parroted everything Chef Ramsay had to say too.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So out of line with what we showed and what we were asking.
But then came Joe, being Italian is my entire personality bastinage.
Looks more like a steamed dumpling in a Chinese restaurant.
Noted.
Pardon my French, but what the fuck? His critique felt like a throwback to a time when French and Italian cuisine were considered the pinnacle of fine dining, and every other culture's cuisine wasn't even a consideration.
You think that could ever be served in an Italian restaurant?
Not in an Italian restaurant.
He sees anything outside the cultural comfort zone of the West as less refined for him, and this is far from the only time he said stuff like this. See, it's obviously not about dissing European cuisine, it's about the disrespect shown towards other culinary traditions. Many Asian dishes demand just as much labor and craftsmanship as European fare, if not more. But Joe's worldview seems confined to a belief that only Western cuisines embody refinement. It's honestly something that really gets under my skin every time he does it. But here's some perspective. An Asian viewer on Reddit said, "I do not use the word racist lightly, but Joe's pattern behavior towards Asian cuisine is racist. I, as an Asian woman, have experienced no shortage of racist insults towards my culture's food, and I have every right to call it out when I see it." Joe's comments stem from racist and outdated views on cuisine. It's not just viewers though. Many investigations have exposed his targeted comments, and the more you look, the more you'll find. Well, honestly, I think he's on the judges panel just for drama's sake. And if you feel the same, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on my post notifications. And by the way, you can now become a member of my channel by hitting this tab right here. From crazy behind the scenes moments to having your own custom emojis, you can now win some really cool prizes by just becoming a member of the channel. But in the meantime, let's talk about this next contestant who had some really questionable skills.
I'm going to single out one dish that stood out. Jennifer.
Okay, wait for it.
Your dish definitely stood out. Unfortunately, for all the wrong reasons.
Looks like she got bent? Anyway, let me ask you this. Is Jennifer Bem the worst winner in US MasterChef history? I say, yeah. For one thing, the C in Jennifer Bem stands for consistency.
What are you thinking about trying to serve us raw food? We're watching you cook, we're not idiots.
Now, it's a perplexing paradox. She showcased flashes of promise, but muddied it all down with way too many moments of abysmal failure. So, in the elimination test in episode 13, when she presented her ground pork patty, right off the bat, Chef Ramsay was appalled.
What the hell were you thinking?
It's what I grew up with.
So if it's that what you grew up with, then this should be mind-blowing.
0 on presentation. Let that set the stage for what's about to come. Because if we're talking flavor, well...
Disgusting. Because that is a joke. Not impressed.
Oh yeah, believe me, it completely deserved that thrashing.
And I think one of your weakest performances in this competition.
He also implied that she hadn't broken a sweat while making it. And we all know how important blood, sweat, and tears are for making art, right?
You don't look like you've achieved much.
I'm sure he had a lot more to say, but only managed to get this out.
I'm gonna stop there.
Joe, on the other hand, was furious. He chucked her plate into the trash like usual, like it had personally offended him, grumbling about how it was a waste of everyone's time.
This is a great example of what garbage is.
Well, she was definitely lucky she didn't get eliminated that night, and even luckier that Christian messed up in the final 3. Another standout dish from the season is Trump's biggest fan, Max Kramer. The steaming pile of crap, crepe and mascarpone layer cake he made resulted in one of the most iconic lines in the history of the show.
It's like I've just gone to the doctors for a skin graft on my butt. Yeah. And stuck it in caramel.
Dude is the wordsmith of the century. If you ask me, I think the judges had an absolute riot over the dish. They couldn't stop laughing at how absurd it was. Seriously, what was this? 15 crepes piled together like the Leaning Tower of pastry?
There's no sweetness. I don't get a lot of coffee flavor at all. I would be worried, actually, with what you made here.
But if you're gonna do that, you may as well make it sweet, right? Or, well, have any flavor whatsoever. You might as well have stacked paper towels instead. However, can you take a wild guess what was worse than this crepe disaster? It was a shotgun wedding between good old beef and, drumroll please, strawberries.
I made a peanut butter and jelly 5-spice spring roll and strawberry pieces and a sriracha jelly dipping sauce.
Congrats, Shelly, that had to have been the stupidest thing I've said all day. Anyway, in Season 6, Episode 10's Elimination Challenge, our gorgeous diva Tommy gave the contestants the challenge of making an elevated dish with PB&J at its heart. And she immediately dove into the challenge by forgetting the main ingredients from the pantry.
Shelly, what's up? Why are you shaking your head?
I didn't get peanut butter and jelly.
It's mind-boggling how she managed to dodge elimination after emptying 2 full baskets from the pantry while missing everything that was essential. She then found herself relying on the kindness of fellow competitors. Hital and Olivia generously offered her some last-minute support.
I only have crunchy extra.
I don't care, I'll take whatever. Thank you.
However, what followed was not a stroke of improvised genius, but rather a mismatched attempt at creativity that was just plain revolting.
Is this dish good enough to get yourself in the top 10?
I'm really proud of my dish.
The discord between the ingredients was unmistakable, leading Chef Ramsay to voice his discontent and regrets in the funniest way possible.
That looks like a stuffed condom. It's just way off the mark.
Yeah, it was a dish that was as strange and unappetizing as it sounded. But Shelly seemed bizarrely proud of it. Go figure. Basically, if you've watched this episode, you know that Sarah got kicked out because she talked back. There's absolutely no way her dish was worse than Shelly's though, period.
Ground beef and strawberries do not go. Ever. You're not going to convince me. Ever.
So, what's worse according to you? Mixing white chocolate with seafood or strawberries with meat? It's a damn shame the two were never on the same show at the same time.
Macerated strawberries on top of a banana puree.
Calling it the worst dish served since the inception of the show, Chef Ramsay highlighted the 1,000,001 flaws that rendered this dish not just subpar, but downright nasty.
Wall insulator with some strawberry or banana that your granddad left under his bed before he passed.
On the other hand, Joe mocked him mercilessly, dangling the dish in front of him, saying,
They raise you up so high, and then you fall.
Emotional damage, right? After tossing it out like the garbage that it was, he grabbed the empty plate in order to show the complete absence of any redeeming qualities.
Might be a memento for you to take home.
God, I don't even know what to say here. But the criticism was valid and stemmed not just from the dish's horrid appearance, but also from its taste and overall execution. Eventually, Lynn found himself in the bottom 3 alongside James and Chrissy, ultimately getting eliminated in that episode. Raise your hand if that surprised you. No takers? I figured. Now, this really reminded me of what happened in Season 11 when the top 10 were faced with their greatest challenge yet. Chef Ramsay revealed a mystery box that had California's finest ingredients. That being Santa Barbara prawns, sea urchin, wasabi, avocado, and grapefruit. What's more, these weren't just any ingredients. They were a tribute to the legendary guest judge, Jonathan Waxman.
All of you, please welcome the legendary Jonathan Waxman.
During the cooking period, Joseph, unfortunately, found himself in some hot water, quite literally. He ended up throwing the prawns on the heat with a whopping 35 minutes still on the clock. Chef Ramsay made it clear, cooking the hero ingredient way too early was a recipe for disaster. This practically guaranteed Joseph a one-way ticket to the bottom 3.
These are already dry, and they're overcooked,
Okay.
and they're continuing to cook because this is hot.
In a stroke of luck, Joseph managed to wrangle a few spare prawns from Anne and Lexi, but the situation had him rattled. The judges kept a watchful eye on Joseph's every move, assessing his frantic attempts to turn things around.
He's cooked every prawn, and they're overcooked. They're like rubber.
So he has to start again.
But he somehow managed to stumble through making a prawn pasta with uni cream, as well as avocado, grapefruit, and uni in grapefruit ponzu. But don't let that pretty appetizing description fool you. It was awful. Owning up to his mistakes, he openly acknowledged that the dish fell far from what he had envisioned conceptually.
Can I ask you one question? If you had to redo this dish, would you do it this way?
No.
And the judges were at a loss for words. Aaron's critique was blunt and to the point. Joseph had missed the mark entirely.
Joseph, I'm sorry to be harsh, man, but you completely missed the boat on the message here with this task.
It was so sloppy with no evident synergy between the ingredients. But it was Waxman's assessment that really stung the most. He essentially said that it lacked quintessential Californian charm. You know, the delicacy, the purity, the precision. He could only articulate his feelings as flummoxed.
How you arrived at this result, I'm flummoxed.
As for Joe, he decided to rip him apart in his usual style.
It looks like a dump bucket. What a waste.
Ouch. Just ouch. But sometimes the challenges the contestants face are totally unexpected. Like what happened in Season 7, Episode 8's Elimination Challenge, when Chef Ramsay wheeled out some of the most appetizing proteins you can ever eat. I'm talking pig's ears, bull's testicles, chicken's feet, lamb tongue, and pork tail. So good. Safe to say, these ingredients would need a ton of love to make them work.
These are some of the cheapest and most underused cuts of meat. The bits that they can all be delicious if you cook them right.
Anyway, with a tight 45 minutes on the clock, they dashed to the pantry for their awful ingredients. No, not awful, awful. Anyway, Diane took a shot at making menudo from her tripe, boldly tweaking it for a crispier punch.
I've never cooked tripe
I've
before.
tasted it before.
Nope.
There's a line in the stomach.
Yep.
Amidst the judges' deliberation, Chef Ramsay's concern over Diane's dish became really apparent, and of course, he was right.
Diana doesn't seem to know what she's doing. She hasn't got a grasp on that. I think she understands how bland that tripe is.
Remember the infamous fossilized cornmeal chicken? But oh boy did she fumble. Aiming to wow with her spicy flavors, she presented her tripe menudo jazzed up with corn and jalapenos.
Where is it?
Like I said, Chef, there's very small pieces.
I see little speckles of white bits. Is that it?
Yes, Chef.
Like here?
Yes, Chef.
Chef Ramsay had to literally excavate the dish to find the tripe, only to discover it was as raw as the day that it was born.
It's a really horrible, spongy... No, I can't even pull it.
Since she had no idea how to fix the raw stomach lining, she simply minced it up into tiny pieces, buried it into her broth, and tried to play it cool, but Chef Ramsay wasn't a fool.
I took the pieces and I cut them because they were very chewy and I didn't want you to get a mouthful of just chew. I was just trying to hide the fact that it was raw.
He called her out for the cardinal sin of the night, trying to mask the undercooked meat. And it wasn't even a good cover-up job. Sadly for her, her half-baked effort wasn't enough to keep her from getting kicked off the show. And she kinda deserved it. But here comes another mystery box that gave the contestants quite a tough time. I'm talking about Season 8 when a MasterChef branded surprise awaited the cooks. Think chicken breasts, carrots, potatoes, ground beef, canned tomatoes, and the like. A comforting array of familiar ingredients.
The basics. You couldn't level the playing field any more than we have tonight.
Right, so Mark, confident as ever, let out a victory cry.
Yeah! Nailed that!
But hold up, because that celebration might have been a bit premature. After the frantic hour of cooking, Chef Ramsay declared the spotlight was on 3 cooks, whose creations had completely missed the mark.
Tonight, you 3 stood out for all the wrong reasons.
Way to turn those smiles upside down, huh? Like you saw, Mark was on the chopping block. His breakfast ensemble of pancakes, hash browns, and fruit lovingly drenched in caramel sauce turned out to be a nauseating experience for Christina Tossi, and she had the biggest sweet tooth in the room.
It has problems. It's undercooked. Seeing raw apple and raw banana just stuck on the plate is like the finesse isn't there.
She nearly gagged at the sight of Mark's undercooked pancake and turned her nose up at the fruit that he'd butchered. To add insult to injury, she compared his chunk of hash browns to, well, a piece of meat.
It's underwhelming and disappointing to say the least.
So, while the others moved to the safety of the balcony, Mark, Sam, and Heather weren't as fortunate. Their chance for a do-over arrived swiftly, a shot to learn from the judges' feedback. With familiar ingredients and a tighter time frame, they faced a crucial choice. They could either recreate their flawed dishes to display some improvement, or craft a new creation to reassert their standing in the competition. As Sam and Heather hustled to prepare their own dishes, Sam opted for meatloaf and potatoes once again. On the other hand, Heather whipped up some chicken kebabs and fries, while Mark appeared to have taken a more leisurely approach. He was his usual overconfident self.
Come on, Mark, pick it up.
I've been in this position in my life before. Pressure is my middle name.
We'll see, buddy. Observing from the safety of the balcony, the other competitors commented on his languid movements, jokingly referring to his actions as slow-mo. Meanwhile, Christina paid a visit to Mark's station, curious about his culinary game plan.
This is an elimination challenge. If you aren't pushing yourself, I'm not interested in having you in this kitchen anymore.
Oh, she was pissed. Mark explained his twist on the breakfast dish, mentioning his addition of chocolate chips to the pancakes and his attempt at baking eggs in the oven. However, Christina, who was getting real tired of his constant football references, couldn't help but ask why he was sticking with that gimmick of all things. Mark, who was completely unfazed, blamed it on his athletic background. But Christina didn't see that athleticism in his relaxed pace and had no choice but to interpret it as a lack of investment or care in the competition.
I don't know if you guys feel this way, but for me, it looks like Mark doesn't care.
And well, she wasn't wrong. Sometime later during Chef Ramsay's visit to Heather's station, he offered some crucial advice. He cautioned her against the risk of dry chicken breast when cooked on skewers. However, Mark chimed in with a cocky comment, advising Heather to follow his lead and ignore the feedback.
You know what you could do, Heather? Just do what I do and ignore them.
Yes, of course, oh wise one. Don't know if he was trying to be funny or what, but Chef Ramsay wasn't having it.
Young man, is this a joke for you? No, we'll take it serious. We'll take your apron off.
Seriously.
The balcony crew couldn't help but whisper in confusion. In a straight-to-camera moment, one contestant bluntly said that Mark didn't seem to care much about the competition, thinking that the whole world revolved around him.
Mark thinks the world stops for him. Not today, baby.
Righto, buckaroo. Later on, Chef Ramsay put Mark on the spot, asking if he felt like he'd improved. Mark confidently served up his sweet chocolate chip pancakes and baked eggs, claiming that he stepped up his game big time. But Chef Ramsay wasn't buying that crap. He pressed Mark, wondering if this was truly his A game or if he was just going through the motions.
That is tough to look at.
But Mark stuck to his guns, insisting that it was his best, leaving Christina and the entire crew visibly taken aback.
I successfully completed the 28th sweep, and I think I scored a touchdown.
However, this attempt didn't quite land very well, as someone from the balcony disdainfully called him a douche. Chef Ramsay's assessment of Mark's food had both positive and probing aspects. While acknowledging its pleasant taste and beautiful cooking, Chef Ramsay questioned Mark's time management, noting his last-minute rush compared to Sam and Heather.
My big question is, did you maximize those 45 minutes? But with 90 seconds left, just waltzed up, put your plate down.
When Christina tasted Mark's breakfast, she noted its proper cooking, but expressed doubt about whether chocolate chip pancakes and baked eggs alone would be enough to secure victory. However, in a dramatic reveal, the famous chef's announcement initially hinted at Sam facing elimination. But it turned out to be a fake out. Both Sam and Heather received the green light to head upstairs, securing their safety for another round. However, the same wasn't true for Mark.
Mark, tonight's second attempt of your American breakfast wasn't good enough.
Ramsay delivered the news that Mark's dish fell short, lacking the desired passion and hunger.
I personally don't think you are quite ready to become America's next MasterChef.
Of course, he was personally offended. I mean, who in their right mind challenges Chef Ramsay at his own game? But finally taking the critique gracefully, Mark thanked the judges, removed his white apron, and left the competition. Now here comes another contestant who should have gotten the boot way earlier than she did. In episode 8's elimination challenge, Yachicha presented her creation. It was a sweet and hot salmon dish paired with braised Swiss chard, Tuscan white beans, and a citrus cream sauce with some high hopes. However, Chef Ramsay's response was a stark contrast to her expectations. He criticized the dish, highlighting that she had twice the time Jeff had, but delivered something he deemed repulsive.
Twice the amount of time that Jeff had, and it looks disgusting.
Her smile quickly faded as Chef Ramsay responded with nothing but disappointment, expecting a dish of that caliber from someone who had merely 10 minutes to cook. His critiques didn't stop there. He sliced into the salmon, but there was nothing positive about the quality.
The salmon's hammered. It's not even dry. It's not even pink. It's hammered. I've served better fish than my cat.
It was a catastrophe. What's more, upon tasting it, he promptly spat it out, declaring that she had completely botched the dish.
What upsets me, your flavor profile is unique. You cook like a dream sometimes, but you've just absolutely screwed that dish 100%.
He made it clear to Yachicha that her only hope was that someone behind her had made an even worse dish.
That is the worst dish I've seen at this stage in the competition in history.
Well, that's saying something. So, what other dishes would you like to add to this list? Feel free to drop your thoughts in the comments section down below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my next one right here since it's even better.